Good afternoon, Ancient Code Triple Three. We will be covering um, Parashah Vayeshev, Parashah number 9 this week. I'm very much looking forward. There's so much to share that happened during the course of this week, and like any week, always God always shows up. He's never not there. He always shows up, and Yeshua's always there, and always guiding, strengthening, encouraging, always present, ever present. So awesome to share this with you today. Father, I pray that I may speak as I should in a way that makes the message clear. I pray that if I speak out of my own and with my own desires and my own fleshy needs and my own arrogance, may it fall on deaf ears. But when I utter words from your throne room, guided through me by the Spirit of Most High God, the Spirit of truth that keeps going out from the Father, as Yeshua says in John 15, verse 26, then may that be accepted open heartedly by all, and may it be like a fresh new breeze blowing in spring with a smell and aroma of beautiful, newly formed flowers out of the hands of God Most High. I pray all of this in the mighty name of Yeshua. May you bless us in this day. Amen. Right. Just for the sake of interest, I just want to share with you. Maybe it comes to you as a surprise. Maybe it's a shocker. I don't know. But to me, it's something that I've been um, taught by the Father over a period of time, and it took me a great length of time to understand this and really grasp that this is where it all comes from, and that we should still honor the day of Shabbat and the Sabbath, the seventh day, which starts on a Friday at 6 o'clock and ends on a Saturday at 6 o'clock. So during this week, Father just reminded me, and he said, and I'm going to read to you what I wrote in my journal. Yeshua is Shabbat. That is why, because he's love. And the Shabbat is the covenant of love. And let's remember the Shabbat was instituted before the fall into sin. That's when Shabbat was instituted. So, John 1, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, and all things came to be through him, and without him nothing made that being. And everything came through Yeshua, including the Shabbat. And he is Lord of the Shabbat. That's why he says in Mark 2, verse 27, I am the Lord of the Shabbat. So I know I emphasize this a lot and I speak about this a lot, and it must be boring at times, but that's one of the things that God impressed on me, is to share with the world that Shabbat is so important to him. I think if I remember correctly, it's mentioned more than 72 times in the word Shabbat, and in the specific order, in the specific ordained time that God made for it and made the provision for it. And he said, Yeshua is Shabbat. That is why he called himself Lord of Shabbat. This is why, to glorify me, the Father, and honor me, and to show gratitude to me for his divine appointment, he, Yeshua, continued to honor the Shabbat in his walk. As Yeshua walked on this earth, he honored the Shabbat. And even after he was crucified, he honored the Shabbat. How can I say that for sure? You know why? Because his Talmidim, his disciples, continue to honor the Shabbat even after his ascension into heaven. They continued to honor the Shabbat. Even Shahol, whom so many people say, oh, he said we didn't need to honor the Shabbat. Remember, Shahol spoke with Greeks who did not honor Shabbat. So what he tried to imply and show us is that your salvation cannot be taken away if you do not honor the Shabbat. But Paul was still a servant of Yeshua. And what did Yeshua say in Matthew 5, verse 17? He said, I did not come to abolish the Torah or the prophets, but I came to complete it. And anyone who does not honor as I do and teaches others to do so will be considered the least in the kingdom of Yutevave. But anybody who honors my words and my commands, like I did to my father, John 15, verse 9 and 10, um, will be considered the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. So if you don't honor Shabbat at the current moment, please pray about it. Ask the Father if you should honor Shabbat. He will answer you. Believe me, he answered me. He answered my wife. He answered our children. He answered many people that I can mention to you. So please do make time. Pray to him. Sit at his feet and ask him if you should honor his Shabbat. We are at the Parashah of uh, Vayeshev. He continued living. It's Parashah number 9. And the Parashah is mainly about Joseph. Joseph, the dreamer. Did he really know the future? When Joseph told his brothers, no, I had a dream. There were 12 stars, and the 11th stars bent in front of the 12th star. There were 11 piles of wheat and or bundles of wheat, and the 12 bundles of wheat, and the 11 bundles bowed before the 12th one. This was, of course, that he saw the future, right? But obviously, everybody thought that he was arrogant. Even his father, spoke strong words to him and said to him, Joseph, enough of that. So there's a time and a place to say things. There's a time and a place to do things. So if we walk in alignment, if we shema and ahavta to Father and His will, we will hear from Him the downloads of when those times are. Myself, I have shared many things with people in specific times that was premature, and it blows up in your face when you do these kind of things. So it's highly important to walk in that obedience, walk in that Shema, and get the blueprint. And when you've received the blueprint, walk with that blueprint until the Father says, release. And do not release it at any time before that. Otherwise, you might be considered arrogant and you might fall into the same trap as what happened to Joseph. Story of Joseph is until this parashah ends in Vayeshev, there's not really, there's glimmers of hope, but Joseph is not out of his misery. But you know what the good thing is about this parashah as you read it? The parashah is, let's just, share that. Parashah is from Bereshit, Genesis 37, verse 1 to Genesis 40, verse 23. And then also Amos 2, verse 6 to 3, verse 8. And is the Haftarah or the prophet portion. And then the Brit Chadashah or the New Covenant portion is Acts, very short this week, Acts 7, verse 9 to 16, with specific focus on verses 9 and 10. So to get back to the parashah is actually about Joseph. And as I said, there's glimmers of hope in this. So first of all, he's sold after his arrogance. His brothers tried to kill him, but they decided, no, okay, let's not kill him, let's sell him off. They sold him. He ends up in the house of Potiphar. In Potiphar's house, his wife tries to seduce Joseph, and Joseph doesn't fall for her traps and her nonsense, but he ends up in jail. But the word says clearly in Genesis 40, I think, if I remember correctly, that the prison, Genesis 39, verse 23, the prison warden paid no attention to anything Joseph did because Yutevave was with him And whatever he did, Yutevave prospered. So whatever Joseph did was prosperous. So even in jail, even in this misery and this circumstances that Joseph finds himself in, God is with him. Father Yutevave has mercy and grace upon him. And it ends in Genesis 40, where the um, um, the cupbearer and the baker are also put in jail. They have a dream, and obviously the baker and the cupbearer's dreams are revealed by Joseph, and the cupbearer is reinstated, and the baker unfortunately did not make it. But Joseph said to them, he said to the cupbearer, the chief cupbearer, remember me when you are restored in your possession. But the word ends with Genesis 40, verse 23. Nevertheless, the chief cupbearer didn't remember Joseph, but forgot him. Yeah, because we all know that if we continue into Miketz, which is the next parashah at the end, we know that Joseph was elevated at the right time. But up to the end of Vayeshev, it was not God's ordained time for Joseph. So if you find yourself in this place where you just seem to go on and there's no hope and there's no light and you just seem to not get out of the situation you find yourself in, your finances are not, you're just not making it, and it keeps on, it continues month after month that you have a shortfall and you have to borrow and you're going deeper and deeper into debt, and you're in the snowball effect, and you are concerned and you have stress and you are worried. Joseph had exactly the same. But at the ordained time, God elevated him from his misery. God took him out, put him on a rock, as David says, and he was restored. He was actually more than restored. He was placed in a position where he basically ruled the world. So remember that and stand in that faith. And it's great that during this week the Father shared through His Spirit several messages of encouragement through the week of Vayeshev. But um, let's quickly go and have a look at how Vayeshev is written, and what that what the message is that we can that can be derived from the word Vayeshev. So Vayeshev is written with a vav, a yud, and an e, and then the shin, and a bet, which is a vet because it has no dot. So it's the bet. So it's Vayeshev. Now, um, just to recap, the Vav is the sixth letter. The Vav is the sixth letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It resembles a tent peg, is the pictograph. It has a value of 6. And the meaning of the Vav is because it's in the beginning of the word, in the very first verse in Genesis 1, Bereshit 1, where it actually, the word ve'et starts with a Vav, and ve'et means and the. So it's between the heavens, Hashamayim, and Ve'et Haaretz, the earth. So in other words, it links heaven and earth, and therefore it's the Vav is the connection between heaven and earth, which is very symbolic because if we see the tabernacle or the sanctuary that Yutevave requested Moshe to build, it was anchored with tent pegs. So the tent peg as the Vav is the symbol of anchoring God's Shekinah, God dwelling with man on earth. The Yud is, of course, the 10th letter, divine order, completed cycle, the smallest letter in the alphabet, so it resembles humility, and it's also the pictograph of the Yud is the hand. The Shin is the 21st letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Its gematria is 300. It resembles fire or tongues of fire from the spirit, and usually associated, and especially for me, this is truly John 14 verse 16, 26, and John 15 verse 26. And I will ask the Father, and he will send you another comforting counselor like me, the Spirit of truth, to be with you forever. And this Spirit, when it was poured out in the form of tongues of fire on the Talmidim, on the disciples, as they were waiting for it after the ascension of Yeshua. The Bet, or the Vet, is the second letter in the Hebrew alphabet. It has a value of 2. The pictograph is a tent or a house. And the meaning is, of course, 1 plus 1 is 2. So there's the man plus God. And when man decides to Shema, to be obedient to God, he becomes one with God. And that is what the bet symbolizes. So God showed a picture, wonderful picture for Vayeshev, the ninth Parashah. And I'm going to read it to you. Yeshua, the portal between heaven and earth, between the throne room of Most High and mankind. This Yeshua, who left his place of authority, humbled himself by becoming a human being, by becoming a normal man, like it's explained in Philippians 2, verse 7 to 8. And in this action of his, he completed the covenant, the handshake which God had with man. He completed this handshake. In the ordained time of God, he died, he rose, and the same power that rose Yeshua from the grave is in you and me, and it was poured out on the disciples in the form of the tongues of fire. This covenant was instituted by Most High through Abraham, and even further back with Adam and Noah. And it was carried forward through David into the new with Yeshua to be fulfilled in the last of the 3/7 feasts up to the new Jerusalem that we'll find ourselves in. I have to continually purify myself as the body by acknowledging and repenting my sins, as in 1 John 1 verse 9 clearly stipulates to us, if we acknowledge our sins, then since he is faithful, just, and trustworthy, he will forgive them and purify us from all wrongdoing. So the blood and the fire will purify us continuously. The word says that the blood of Yeshua, the blood, there's life in the blood. And the word also says that it doesn't matter. I think if I remember correctly, it's Paul that said, when the high priest came into the Holy of Holies once a year, he just had to bring blood. He couldn't get into the Holy of Holies without blood. He endangered himself if he ever considered going into the Holy of Holies without blood. Why? Because there's life in the blood, right? The life is in the blood. So um, in this way, Vayeshev reminds us of our bodies that has to be ready, fulfilled through the whole process, continuously reminding ourselves and purifying our body for the second coming of Messiah. We must be ready for the bridegroom. We must be ready when the bridegroom appears on the clouds to meet him. And we must be looking forward to that. What a day it will be when he appears on the clouds and when we go up and meet him in the clouds. I must be ready to enter his presence. And at Yom Kippur with Yeshua as my lawyer, I must enter the presence of Most High. And you know, Exodus 32, verse 30 to 32 explains the people came to Moshe and they said to Moshe, no, 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 no. We don't want to go in and meet with the Father in the tent of meeting. because the Shekinah was on the tent of meeting, right? You go, you go. They were scared because they were not prepared for meeting the creator of the universe. Moshe, in his humility, of course, knew that he was still a sinful man, but because of his love and his humility for God Most High, he was ready to meet with him. And so must you and I be ready to meet with the creator of the universe at the right hand of Yeshua, our Messiah. Um, as Moshe was the mediator between the people and God Most High, Yeshua is our mediator. Um, and Vayeshev reminds us exactly of that. Looking further at Vayeshev, we can see through Vayeshev that the way to honor God is by emulating His creation, by walking in obedience, step by step, with His plan and His blueprint for us through the seven feasts, and by following the Messiah Yeshua and by walking in the footsteps of Yeshua, the Messiah. We do everything through Yeshua as he did for the Father. He says in John 15, verse 9 and 10, stay in my love, as I have stayed in the Father's love by obeying his commands. And when you obey my commands, you will stay in my love. Um, in this week's Parashah, in Amos 3, verse 7, God says, there is no secrets that I have. I don't do anything. It says God does nothing without revealing his plan to his servants, the prophets. And we were warned in advance that there will be a coming, but the coming will be like a thief in the night. And as Joseph was waiting in anticipation, but he continued the good deeds, right? He did not fall for the trap of Potiphar's wife. Even though it seems through the word that she was a pretty lady, he did not fall for the trap. He stood strong because he was anchored in God Most High. And because he was anchored in God Most High, he could resist the temptation that was brought over his life by the enemy. He could stand against it, even though he was put in jail and had to wait. His patience endured because he waited and waited until the last day comes. So scriptures that I received this week as confirmation and to strengthen um, my weak body, because I'm just a sinner, and so often what I just love about the intimacy with God and the relationship that I have with God is the fact that He strengthens me. And sometimes in ultimate lows, he will give through the daily cortado. I have this pack of scriptures which daily I try to memorize, so that I know more and more scripture, so that I am able to use the sword of the word against the enemy when I feel his attacks coming. Um, and two scriptures that stand out this week was James 1, verse 21 and 22. So rid yourselves. James 1, verse 21 and 22. Sorry, I read that a bit fast. I realize that. But so rid yourselves of all vulgarity and obvious evil, right? Like Joseph did, and receive meekly, quiet, gentle, patient, and long suffering. That's meekly. The word implemented in you that can save your lives. And then 22, don't deceive yourselves by only hearing what the word says, but do it. Don't be hearers of the word, be doers of the word, right? We know that. And then Revelation 12, verse 11, they, the sons and daughters of Yah, defeated him, Hasatan, because of the Lamb's blood and because of the message of their witness. Even when facing death, they did not cling to life. Joseph might have faced death. He didn't know what was the circumstances in the jail. He knew I'm not going to fall for this woman. I'm going to stand strong, even though I am going to be, or even though I'm going to jail. He he stood. He stood his ground. He was not afraid to do that. Um, and I think that, if going back to our picture, that in a way, Joseph was a prophet because he knew about the future that God shared with him. And he took that future in his heart and he walked by it. He did not allow, like it says in um, Romans about Abraham, he did not doubt God's strength when he considered his own body, which was as good as dead, or when he considered Sarah's womb, which was just about dead too. His trust did not waver. He stood in that trust. And the same with Joseph. He had these dreams. And even though he went through these horrific circumstances in his life, he held on to these dreams and he held on to God's promises. It makes me think of Psalm 119, verse 49 and 50, which often I've repeated to the Father, and it's something that my wife and I carry very closely to ourselves. And I remind my family constantly about that as well. Psalm 119, verse 49 and 50. Remember your promise to your servant through which you have given me hope. In my distress, my comfort is this, that your promise gives me life. And it's this situation that Joseph also found himself in, but he held on to God and his promises, and he held on to life because he was restored, he was reinstated, he never gave up, and he reaped the reward for his faith, his imuna, and his batach, right? Imuna, faith, batach, trust. But the imuna faith is more than just faith. Imuna faith is ultimate faith. It's the kind of faith that says, I'm standing at the edge of a cliff and I'm willing to take the step because I know that God, the Father, the creator of all, will catch me through the mercy of Yeshua. We end off with Ephesians 4, verse 21 and 23. If we really allow ourselves to be educated by Yeshua, if we really allow ourselves to be educated by Yeshua and his teaching, we know that in him is emet, truth. Emet is the Hebrew word for truth. We know that in him is truth. And then verse 23, and then we must let our spirits and mind be renewed. We must let our spirits and our minds be renewed. Allow the Ruach in us to take over, take full control of our lives, as it's stipulated in Galatians 5, verse 25. Since it is through the Spirit that we have life, let it also be through the Spirit that we order our lives day by day. May grace and shalom be ours in full measure. Vayeshev was a wonderful sharing. I really enjoyed bringing that to you and receiving the revelations from the Father. It was a wonderful week. I praise and I honor Father for this week. And just two things to end off with. Psalm 4, verse 9. When I lie down, I sleep in peace because you Tevave, make me live securely. And then Psalm 4, verse 5. In the morning you hear my voice, and I wait expectantly. In the morning you hear my voice. I lay my needs before you, and I wait expectantly. In the mighty name of Yeshua. Father, may you bless us. May you keep us. May you make your face shine on us. May you lift up your face toward us and give us peace and prosperity. And may you guide us every step of the way. And may we shema and ahavta in everything that we do, because we love you. In the mighty name of our Messiah, Yeshua. Amen.